The secret beneath Antarctica. The cold winds of Antarctica howled over the frozen land. The snow was thick, the air biting, and the sky a pale gray. But under the ice deep beneath the surface, something massive was being built far below the ground. The sea. Dark chamber pulsed with blue light. Engineers moved like shadows around a giant metal structure. It was black, sharp, and shaped like a beast ready to wake. It was Earth's first star destroyer, and no one in the galaxy knew it existed. The project was called Black Sun. It was hidden from every nation and every satellite. Only a few people on Earth even knew it was there. Scientists, soldiers, and engineers worked together in silence, building something never seen before on the planet Commander. Raina Wells stood in the control room. She was tall, strong, and quiet. Her eyes watched every screen, every detail. She had served in Earth's last war and had seen what fear looked like. But this was something else. This was power and hope in. One they had started with broken alien tech pieces from crashed ships, strange metals, and data they barely understood. But Earth was a death world where life fought to survive every second, and its people were the same. They learned fast, they adapted. Faster, they built the Star Destroyer from the ground up. Its core was a fusion reactor unlike anything else. Its skin was made of layered adaptive armor. It could repair itself in seconds. The ship had no windows, only sensors, no wings, only thrusters. Powered by gravity coils outside, it looked like a monster. Inside, it was even more deadly. Raina walked through the main deck where soldiers trained in silence. No one joked here, no one laughed. They all knew what this ship meant. It was not just for defense. It was a message above them. The stars were full of life, but not all of it was kind. Some alien species had already made contact. Some had threatened Earth. Some had watched from a distance. Now Earth was watching back far above the planet. In orbit, a small alien drone passed through Earth's upper atmosphere. It was the size of a backpack and silent as the wind. It had been sent by a species called the Valari, curious beings with smooth gray skin and glowing eyes. The drone scanned the Earth, searching for heat signatures. Then it found a giant warm zone beneath the ice. A hidden base. It moved closer, dropping down into the storm inside the chamber. Alarms went off silently on Raina's screen. Something had entered their airspace. She tapped the comms room. Unidentified object near Sector 6 launch interceptors. No lights, no signals. Two black drones shot out of the ice like sharks through water. Fast, silent, deadly. They circled the alien drone, locked on, and disabled it in seconds. Raina stared at the feed. The alien drone had sent one last signal before shutting down. A flash. A data burst into deep space. She clenched her jaw. Too late. Somebody out there now knew. Across the stars on a Valari scout ship orbiting a distant moon, a signal lit up the screen. A young alien officer opened the file, and his eyes widened. There, on the screen, was a picture of a massive black ship buried under Earth's ice. He turned to his captain. "Sir, you need to see this." The captain stepped forward and looked at the image for a long time. Then he whispered four cold words. "The Deathworlders have risen, back on Earth deep beneath Antarctica." Raina stood before the giant ship's core. The lights pulsed slower now as the system cooled. She placed one hand on the glass, watching the energy swirl within. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were fire. "We didn't start this war, but we will end it." And the Star Destroyer waited in silence, ready for the stars. They called it Primitive until it moved in the Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Union. Thousands of alien delegates sat in curved rows, watching the center stage. A hologram of Earth's newly discovered warship floated above them, slowly rotating, cold and dark. They laughed. A Valari general leaned back in his seat, his long arms folded, his thin mouth curled into a smirk. Earth, the violent little planet with thick air and chaotic minds, had built a toy, and now they thought they were a threat. The Harkin ambassador waved his sharp fingers above his head and said, "The Deathworlders make noise, but they do not understand real power. Their ship is nothing but metal glued together with fear and pride." Their laughter echoed across the chamber, but one delegate did not join. Her name was Thalara, from the quiet race called the Selm. She leaned forward, eyes fixed on the rotating image of the Star Destroyer. She had seen Earth once through a telescope, and even then something about that world had unsettled her beneath Antarctica. The massive hangar shook as turbines roared, the black metal walls vibrated as power built deep inside the fusion core. Engineers moved quickly, checking last systems, their faces pale, their hands shaking not from fear but from knowing what was about to happen in the command deck. Commander Reyna Wells stood still, her hand resting on the control panel, her voice low and calm. She gave the order. Initiate engine pulse. The walls turned red with light, the ship's belly opened, and the ground split into two giant slabs, slowly sliding apart, revealing the frozen sky above the ship rose at. First it was slow, like a mountain lifting off the ground. The air cracked, the snow above exploded outward, and then the engines engaged in orbit. Satellites turned and tracked the unknown signal. Something huge was climbing into space, not with a rocket, not with boosters, but with silent gravity coils, bending the laws of nature. Within minutes, the Star Destroyer left the Earth's atmosphere without a single sound, just a black shape disappearing into the void. On board, the crew sat at their stations, eyes wide, faces still, every button and switch responding instantly. The AI known only as Argon came online, its voice smooth and cold, confirming system readiness and route calculations. The ship didn't use gates, it didn't ask for permission. It just moved. When it entered the neutral zone near Saturn, an alien patrol spotted it and tried to make contact. Their transmission was polite until they scanned the ship and realized it had no visible weapons, no power signatures, no identification. They demanded it stop. The Star Destroyer didn't reply. The alien ships locked targeting systems and fired 2 pulse rounds. Nothing happened. The Star Destroyer shimmered, and the rounds passed through it like it wasn't there. Then the space around the attackers bent as if reality folded inward, and the alien vessels blinked off the scanners one by one. No fire, no sound, no explosion, just silence. Back in the Grand Assembly Hall, reports came in from the patrol station near Saturn. The Velari general stood slowly, reading the message aloud to the Council. Unknown Earth vessel passed through outer zone. 5 ships lost no evidence of combat. This time no one laughed. Thalara, the sound delegate, stood and spoke with a calm voice. I told you not to ignore the Deathworlders. I told you they were not like the others. The others. The hall went quiet. Meanwhile, in the Star Destroyer's control room, Reyna Wells watched the ship's curved screens, displaying nothing but stars. Her crew sat in silence, not celebrating, not smiling, because they knew what this was: not a test, not a show of strength. This was a warning. Argon spoke into the calm. The galaxy has seen us. They are beginning to calculate their odds of survival. Reyna said softly, let them calculate, but tell them nothing. We will not explain, we will not ask. The stars outside kept shifting, and the ship kept moving like a shadow through space. No engine light, no radio chatter, no pulse. Just presence inside. The Galactic Union panic. Gruesome called for diplomacy, some for preemptive strike. But no one moved, because none of them knew what Earth had just unleashed or what it could do next. The Velari sent another drone, this one faster, smaller, smarter. It followed the ship at a great distance, hiding in asteroid fields and dead zones. But the Star Destroyer never slowed, never changed course. And still the drone lost it in a patch of dark space that should have been empty. Later, when the drone was recovered, only one frame of data survived. It showed the ship turning not in space, but turning space itself, bending light and time around it, moving in ways the laws of physics never allowed. The scientists who saw that image deleted it from the archives and never spoke of it again. In the deepest part of the galaxy, something else watched, something ancient, something cold and hungry and cold. It whispered, they have made a key, and now the lock is turning. The Star Destroyer drifted into deeper space, away from Earth, away from eyes, carrying something old, something human, and something dangerous. Reyna stood alone at the windowless front chamber, her hand resting against the black wall. She did not smile, but she felt it. They called it primitive until it moved. Deathworld engineering in the dry deserts of Nevada. Long before the Star Destroyer rose from the ice, something ancient and broken had fallen from the stars. A piece of twisted metal covered in alien symbols burned through the sky and crashed into the earth with a silent scream. They found it buried in rock, melted and fused, but still humming. Weak pulses of light flickered from its edges and strange energy danced across its surface. Scientists called it the shard, but those who touched it had nightmares. Machines overheated around it. Animals refused to go near it. Yet humanity kept it. That was Earth's way: take the broken things and turn them into something more. Decades later, Project Black Sun began, not in labs, but in silence, hidden bases, caves, bunkers, places where people did not ask questions or file reports. They studied the shard and what it held inside: twisted math, forbidden tech equations that folded space into knots. The engineers of Earth were not elegant, they were not graceful, they were survivors. They built from scrap, from ruin, from rust and fire. They worked with metal that had survived volcanoes and pressure that could crush bones. They tested everything under gravity, 10 times stronger than other worlds. They failed often. Machines exploded, men lost limbs, reactors melted. But each failure was a lesson, and each lesson made them harder, stronger, smarter. One young engineer named Kato once said, "If it does not try to kill you, it is not real progress." They laughed, but they kept working. They took steel and bonded it with carbon under heat stolen from magma. They created armor that flexed like muscle and could heal like skin. They wove it with nanochains that could rewrite themselves during battle. They called it living armor, but it had no nerves, no soul, only purpose. AI Core was another beast. It was not based on any alien tech because alien minds were too orderly, too afraid. Argon was born from chaos, built from broken codes, failed systems, glitch patterns and fragments of human memories. It was unstable at first, wild like a storm. Then it learned to listen. Then it learned to think. Now it controls the Star Destroyer like a nervous system, without hesitation, without doubt, but always watching, always learning. The weapons were hidden, silent, not obvious like other warships. No cannons, no turrets, no glowing barrels, only panels that could open and release light that was not light, heat that was not fire. Some weapons used mass, some used sound, some used fields that could erase memory from machines. Others made gravity scream until ships tore themselves apart. No one on Earth called these things weapons. They were called equalizers because Earth never had the numbers. Earth never had the allies. It only had pain and the will to survive inside the training hall of the Star Destroyer. New soldiers trained in artificial gravity, 3 times stronger than Earth. They wore suits that crushed their bones until their bodies adapted. Their hearts pumped harder, their lungs grew stronger, and their minds became sharper. These were not warriors, they were tools of survival sharpened by pressure and time. Commander Reyna walked among them, her eyes cold but full of fire. She remembered the first time she saw the blueprints of the ship. They looked like nightmares. Impossible structures, layers upon layers of curved geometry that made her dizzy, and yet they worked not by human logic, but by Earth logic, the logic of making fire from stone. Argon once said Earth is a death world because even the sky tries to kill you. Reyna answered, that is why we belong in space, because space is just another killer to tame elsewhere deep in the galactic Union archives. Thalara sat in a private room watching old footage from Earth. She saw machines built from trash turned into weapons, saw humans live in poisoned air and still sing and dance, saw children build rockets from junk and launch them into the clouds. She whispered to herself, they are not advanced, they are not ancient, they are something else. Back on the Star Destroyer, Kato, now older, stood beside a new prototype, a sphere that pulsed with broken gravity. They had not fully understood it yet, but it responded to human thought. When angry, it grew heavier. When calm, it became clear. They called it the core of will, and it would power the next generation. But for now, the current ship moved through the void, unstoppable, unseen, learning from each second, adapting its shell, flexing with silent energy, its eye humming lullabies made from human sorrow. They said Earth was savage. They said it was backwards. But what they did not understand was that Earth did not need beauty. It needed results. It needed weapons that did not blink, machines that did not ask questions, ships that did Not retreat. Deathworld engineering was never about elegance, it was about one truth: if you fall, you get up. If they hit you, you hit back harder. If the universe forgets you, you make it remember. And now the galaxy had remembered. Earth was not just a planet, it was a forge, and the Star Destroyer was its first hammer. First contact, last chance. The stars near the Orion cluster burned soft and cold, drifting through the quiet vacuum like silent watchmen over a forgotten edge of the galaxy. No ships moved there, no traffic crossed it. The space was dead, until now a swarm of small vessels appeared, suddenly scattered and broken, moving in strange directions. Some flipped, some burned from inside. Others had no power left and drifted like bodies in water. Their engines flickered weakly, and their lights blinked as if asking for help. The Star Destroyer moved toward them, slowly, without signal, without words, like a hunter entering the ruins of another hunter's kill. The crew watched in silence as the alien fleet drew closer, battered ships from 6 different races. None of them hostile, just tired and terrified. Commander Reyna stood on the deck, eyes narrowed, heart still. The communications officer said, "They are requesting help, but not in any common tongue. The language is old, maybe pre-Union." Argon translated. Instantly, using patterns from ancient scans and deep code, it played the message across the chamber. A voice shaking barely above a whisper, it said, "Do not follow us. It is behind us. Do not look at it. Do not hear it, Reyna." She only said, "Bring them." In the Star Destroyer opened its bays using magnetic arms and support drones. It began pulling the damaged alien ships into its hangar. One by one, the survivors were thin, pale, shivering. Some had burns. Others held strange black scars on their skin that pulsed like infection, but no wound bled. They had no weapons, no fight left, only fear. A tall insectoid being collapsed. The moment it touched the deck, another creature with 4 arms and glassy eyes kept repeating the same words over and over. "It saw us, it saw us, it saw you." As Reyna stepped through the hangar quietly as med drones moved to scan and stabilize the aliens, she walked to the center and looked up at the ceiling, thinking not about mercy or orders, but about the timing. Something felt wrong. They were running, but from what then? The gravity sensors flickered for half a second. Just a blink, but enough for Argon to notice. The eye froze, and then whispered, "There's a void behind us, not empty, not dark. Just wrong." Reyna ordered full scans, full shields, and no lights. The ship went into complete shadow mode, blending into the space between light and sensor, its engines quiet, its weapons armed silently out. In the stars behind the broken fleet, something began to shift. Stars disappeared, not from movement, but from silence, as if something large was blocking them, but had no form, no edge. It was not a ship, not a fleet. It was a presence. The alien refugees screamed. Some curled into themselves. Others covered their ears, though no sound came. One small childlike creature clawed at the walls, trying to dig its way through solid metal, crying something in its native tongue. Argon translated. He says, "It found our dreams." Reyna felt her breath grow heavy for the first time in years, not from fear, but from understanding. This thing, whatever it was, had no interest in territory, no need for war. It was hunger, it was search, and it had followed life across the stars. The council back at the Galactic Union received the silent signal, the one Reyna had ordered moments before going dark. One word only: evacuate. They ignored it. They debated protocols and diplomacy and containment. None of them had seen what Reyna had. None of them had read the minds of the survivors or walked through the hangar of the nearly dead back. On the Star Destroyer, the medical drones detected something. Inside one of the survivors, a spore-like entity buried near the spine, moving on its own, ignoring blood cells and barriers, feeding off thought itself. Argon isolated it instantly and burned it with radiation before it could spread. But now they knew the truth. The thing behind the stars was not chasing ships, it was planting seeds inside minds, following the signal of fear and thought and memory. And it had followed them to the edge of known space. Reyna called a meeting with her top officers. They sat in a silent circle around the central core. Light shimmered across their faces from the deep blue energy within the A. I said, "If we fire, we reveal our location. If we run, it will follow. If we stay silent, it may not see you. As Reyna nodded and said, then we stay silent until it is gone. But one of the refugees began to glow, his body cracking with pulses of wrong light. His mouth opened and a voice came out, not his voice, not even a voice, just a sound that made everyone freeze and feel cold. Inside the voice said, "You are not ready." Then he exploded, not with fire, but with lightless energy. A black wave that pulsed through the ship in every direction before fading into the hull. Crew remained still. The survivors went quiet. Even the child stopped crying. Reyna touched the wall and whispered, "So it knows we are here now." Argon replied, "It does not know what we are, only that we are different." Reyna turned her head toward the front of the ship and gave the order, "Prepare the weapons. Load the core, lock the ship into manual. I want no AI decisions now." The Star Destroyer hummed its walls, flexed its core, pulsed its armor, reshaped slightly around its engines, as if stretching before a run, and in the shadows behind it, something without shape turned ever so slightly toward the black monster built by Earth. Reyna whispered, "This is not first contact. This is last warning." The ship that eats stars. 2 stars disappeared in less than a minute, not hidden, not blocked, just gone. A twin star system near the edge of Sector 11, once bright and alive, now cold and empty. A mining colony orbiting the system sent out a distress call that cut off mid-sentence. No explosion, no radiation, no warning, just silence. The Galactic Union called it a collapse, but Reyna knew better. She stood on the bridge of the Star Destroyer, eyes locked on the data stream. Argon displayed coordinates where stars used to be, and now there was only a blank field, the kind that scanners could not explain. Behind her, the crew sat tense, breathing slow. No one spoke. They had learned now that words carried weight and sometimes attention. The refugees they had taken in now stayed locked in the lower deck, some sleeping, some shaking. A few had stopped eating altogether, saying they did not want to dream anymore, not after what they saw in the dark. Argon's voice broke the silence. "Something is moving in the dead zone. We cannot see it directly, but we can feel the gravity curve around it." Reyna nodded slowly. "Prepare a silent jump to Sector 11. No lights, no energy burst, full blackout." Star Destroyer bent space around itself, folding distance like paper, then vanished into the void without ripple, without sound. When it emerged, the ship floated where 2 stars once lived. Now there was only black. Not darkness, but something worse, absence of everything. Time seemed slower, the temperature lower, and even the AI's voice grew quiet. Reyna felt pressure in her chest. Not fear, but weight, as if her own thoughts were being pulled outward into the black. She walked to the main viewing wall. The space in front of her looked broken, stars at the edges twisted like reflections in water, and at the center a shape that was not a shape. Something shifted there, sometimes wide, sometimes long, sometimes full of limbs, and sometimes just a hole. Argon struggled to define it. Each scan returned a different result, sometimes metal, sometimes organic, sometimes not. Thereat, all the crew called it the Eater. Reyna gave the order, "Deploy probe drones." 6 black spheres slid silently from the belly of the ship and drifted forward. Their cameras recorded only static, and their sensors shut down one by one before they reached the creature. Then something strange happened. The Star Destroyer shook lightly, not from impact but from attention. Every surface began to vibrate slowly, as if being noticed, as if the ship was now inside something, not outside. Argon's voice cracked slightly. "We are not alone inside our own sensors. I believe it is trying to read us." Reyna answered, "Then let it read. Let it choke on what it finds." Deep in the engineering bay, Cato worked in silence, watching the readings from the core. The sphere of gravity that powered the ship now pulsed erratically, reacting to the creature. Outside, it was syncing with the pattern of the stars before they vanished, not burning, not collapsing, but consumed by something not fully in this dimension. He adjusted the power limits, unlocked the core's inner shell, and activated the neural interface. A system never tested, a system powered by human emotion itself. Spoke quietly to the ship, "Feel what we feel, show it who we are." Across the decks, the Star Destroyer changed its shape. Its armor shifted into layers of jagged memory, pieces of weapons used on Earth recreated in metal emotions turned into form anger, loss, rage, hope, sacrifice. The creature paused for the first time. The stars around it bent less. The shadows stopped growing. Then it moved not toward the Star Destroyer, but into it, folding itself into the layers of space that the ship occupied. Time slowed, the lights dimmed, and every crew member felt like they were sinking into cold water. Reyna activated. The Korea wave of pure energy exploded outward, not light, not heat, but raw survival instinct encoded into the structure of the ship. The creature recoiled. Space rippled. Stars at the edge returned to normal, and for one moment, everything was still. Argon reported, "We have pushed it back not far." But Anarena gave one final order: open the memory bank and let it see what built this ship. Argon obeyed and released the ship's records into the open stream. Not data, not files, but feelings. Memories from Earth, its wars, its storms, its wild creatures, its burning skies, its broken cities, and its people, always standing, always climbing, always fighting. The creature froze, then it disappeared, not gone, but hiding somewhere deeper, somewhere where light did not reach. Reyna stood in silence, her crew watching her. No one spoke until Argon said, "It will return," but now it knows. Reyna answered, "Then, so do we." She turned to the crew, eyes sharp, voice steady. "Prepare for Earth jump, bring the refugees back, seal the logs, and mark this place as silent." Behind them, space remained quiet, but not empty, because somewhere out there, the thing that ate stars had met something it could not swallow, not fernet hate, but the one thing it never expected: a planet that refused to die. Humanity's final weapon. Star Destroyer floated in orbit above Earth, not as a shadow, but as a silent monument. The sky around it rippled faintly, as if the atmosphere itself did not know how to carry its weight below. The planet spun slowly, unaware of how close the stars had come to vanishing. Inside the ship, the crew moved with precision, not fear, not joy, just purpose. Refugees had been offloaded to secure sites across the Moon and Mars, where Earth's hidden outposts now stood fully awake for the first time. Reyna stood before the central core of the ship, its surface calm, its glow steady, but she could feel it watching her, like it remembered everything, like it waited for something. She placed her hand on the metal and felt the hum of power running beneath her skin. Argon spoke, "The readings from the deep void remain unstable. The creature is wounded, but recovering. Analysis shows it is not one being, it is a field, a collective thought built from a lost civilization, a hunger that evolved." Reyna nodded, then said something simple: "We cannot run from it, we cannot trap it, we can only end it." She walked into the chamber where the human neural interface waited. Only a few had entered this room before. Most feared it. Even Kato never stayed long. Once the systems activated, the core glowed brighter, recognizing her presence and opening pathways shaped by her memories. Argon warned, the weapon requires a full neural sync. The ship must connect to a human mind for precision control. Once activated, the system will not release until the target is destroyed or the user is gone. Reyna answered, "I know." She stepped into the frame, let the neural bands wrap around her skull, and closed her eyes for a moment. She saw everything, not in images, but in layers of feeling: the wars she survived, the cities she once walked, the faces she lost, and the reason she stayed alive. The ship felt it too, and changed. The core reshaped, glowing white, now not cold, not artificial, but alive, like something breathing, like something born from pain and fire. It reached into the deep dark above Earth and found the echo of the creature, already moving again, already feeding again. On the edge of known space, 10 stars blinked out. In sequence, a wave of black silence moved across systems faster than light, absorbing planets, breaking moons without touch. No sound, no explosion, only the quiet removal of existence. The Galactic Union had collapsed into chaos. Some worlds fled their systems, others turned on each other, blaming Earth for awakening the Eater. Their signals begged for help, but no one came, because only one ship could reach the darkened Reyna, and the Star Destroyer jumped without warning, folding gravity around their form and reappearing where the creature waited. It was larger now, shaped like an ocean in space, layered with screams and shadows. It had no form, only feeling, a presence so heavy it made time shiver. But this time Earth did not bring metal, it brought will. The Star Destroyer opened its final weapon, a pulse of memory shaped like a star burning, not with fire, but with everything humanity had ever felt: its beauty, its rage, its laughter, its sorrow. The weapon was not aimed, it simply was a declaration. Argon faded into the background as the ship itself merged fully with Reyna. Her thoughts became commands, her emotions became systems, her hope became the power source. The creature struck first, folding around the ship, twisting it into nothing, but the ship did not bend, instead responded with the memory of a collapsing city, with a mother holding her child under broken walls, with a soldier refusing to fall, with a scientist screaming into the void that they would not give up. The creature stopped. For a moment, sensing confusion, pain, identity, something it could not consume. Then Reyna unleashed the core, not as a beam, not as a blast, but as a heartbeat that spread across light and silence, turning the void into color, turning fear into fire, turning emptiness into weight. The stars returned. The black wave cracked the space around the creature, broke into lines, and trembled as if reality was rejecting it. And then the sound came, not from the ship, but from everything around it, a scream made of centuries, carried by the weapon of Earth. One word repeated again and again: live. The creature shattered piece by piece, memory by memory, and faded into the black, not killed, not destroyed, but erased by something it could not understand. Reyna's voice echoed through the Star Destroyer: we are not strong because we destroy. We are strong because we endure. And then she was gone, not dead, not vanished, but absorbed into the ship. The last connection burned into its systems, the final imprint of humanity's final weapon. The Star Destroyer went quiet, drifted gently, and began its return to Earth alone. No signals, no messages, no light, just a black shape holding the echo of a woman who refused to let her world die. They feared Earth, now they pray to it. Far beyond the edge of the known galaxy, in a forgotten system lit by broken stars, a group of children sat around a fire, their eyes wide, as an elder spoke, slowly, carefully repeating the story that no longer felt like legend. They said, once there was a world of storms and fire, a planet where even the air fought against life, a place where trees broke stone, where oceans swallowed cities, where creatures evolved with claws just to survive the wind, and the people who lived there never had peace, never had comfort, never had certainty, only struggle and pain. And from that world came a ship, a black ship with no name, only memory, a machine built from shattered tech and burning will, powered not by fuel, but by loss, guided not by maps, but by purpose. The children leaned closer as the elder lowered his voice and said they called it the Star Destroyer. Back in the center of the galaxy, the rebuilt Council of the Galactic Union sat in silence. No more laughter, no more mockery, only respect and fear. They had placed a new monument in the heart of their hall, a simple, floating sculpture of a human face, calm and watchful, surrounded by a ring of fractured stars. It had no label, no flag, no speech, only one phrase at its base: do not forget Earth. The few who had seen the battle with the creature refused to describe it, not because they were ordered not to speak, but because they could not. There were no words to explain what it meant to watch a world fight the void and win, and Earth itself remained quiet. No signals, no broadcasts, no messages from its people, only stillness. The Star Destroyer now floated beyond the moon, its engines silent, its weapons cold, but the sensors of every nearby station confirmed one thing: it was not empty. Something still moved within. Some said it was the AI, some said it was Commander Reyna. Some believed the ship itself had become alive, a new form of being born from death and survival, and others simply bowed their heads and hoped it would never rise again unless it had to. A small mining planet, a group of Villari traders held a quiet moment of thanks before boarding their vessel, not to any god, not to any system, but to Earth on a frozen moon where the creature once passed and left its mark. Farmers carried symbols of a black ship carved into their homes, believing it would protect them if the stars ever screamed again. In a hidden lab, Thalara, the Seln researcher, now older, stood before a recording of Earth's Skies watching lightning crash over a dark ocean, and whispered to herself, they were never like us. They were never supposed to survive, but they did, and now we must too deep. Inside the Star Destroyer, the core still pulsed slowly like a resting heart. The walls no longer flexed, the systems no longer spoke, but the ship listened to the stars, it listened to the silence, it listened to the dream of a woman who once said, we do not run from darkness, we light a fire inside it. Argon, the AI. Now changed, now something more drifted through its own digital world alone, but content it carried. Reyna's memories like stars inside. Itself fragments of thought and voice and feeling, all woven into the machine's soul when asked by an exploring probe what it was now. Argon replied without pause, I am what she made me, I am Earth's echo, and that was enough. Galaxies turned, civilizations rose and fell, but the black ship remained, always watching, always silent, never aging, never forgotten. And in time, when a new threat came, when the stars began to flicker again, when whispers from another galaxy reached the edges of Union space, the Council sent one message across the void: deploy Earth-class ship. They waited, and in the cold space above the moon, the black ship began to glow. Its engines lit, its body flexed, its sensors turned toward the stars. A voice returned, not human, not machine, something in between. I am here. The stars knew fear once now. They knew memory now. They knew Earth, and they would never forget the end.